My name is Joey, and I'm with HBYOB. With me is Chris.
What's going on, guys?
And I also have Bill Walters. How are you doing, Bill?
Doing great. How's everyone doing?
We're doing great. So we just wanted to get together and kind of talk about a recent home brewing competition that we had here at the store, how we judged it. Bill is our first place winner, and he will be brewing his beer over at Star City Brewing. So check back on our Facebook page, and we will let you know when that is able to be on tap at the brewery. So first off, we have our first guest. I want to say hi to Bill. And Bill, when did you start homebrewing, and how long have you been homebrewing?
I've been homebrewing for over 20 years. I started in early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And yeah, there wasn't many resources back then for homebrewing, but boy, it's come a long way now.
Oh,
You can brew on almost a commercial scale with the stuff you can get at your store and anywhere on the internet,
yeah. So would you say you've been brewing a lot more recently, the same, or over 20 years?
On and off throughout the years. Took a hiatus. Had with my daughters, I had to raise them and do all the cheer and all the school stuff with them, and then they graduated, went to college, and now I have all this time on my hands. And the last 2-3 years, I got real serious with it, and here I am.
About the same time we opened the store.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been about 2-3 years now. Cool. You drinking anything, Bill?
Yeah, I'm drinking a Beer to Guard.
And how long ago did you brew that?
I brewed it back in April. It's been lagering since late April, so about 3 months or so.
Wow.
So being that it's a lager, do you have any special equipment to do that, or just using anything in particular?
Yeah, actually, the Beer to Guard was brewed with a Kolsch yeast, and I brewed it at a slightly higher temperature, at a nail temperature. Actually, usually you'll brew a Kolsch yeast around 62 or so, or 60, and I actually brewed it at a little higher temperature, and it fermented out just like a regular ale, and I just cold crashed it and kegged it and lagered it for 3 months, and man, is it good.
So fermentation temperatures definitely, being that you won first place in the homebrew competition, obviously you keep a close tabs on your fermentation temperatures, your aging time periods. I mean, it goes to show that it really makes a difference in your final product.
Absolutely. I have complete control in most of my processes in the brewing, especially in fermentation. I can ferment at any temperature, cold crash, whatever.
Well, awesome. Chris, are you drinking anything today?
No, not tonight. Normally I would, but I'm trying to at least get back on some sort of health kick before we go nuts next weekend at Beer and Sweat. So I figured I'd tone it down this week and next week, and then but on the 17th, all bets are off.
Well, I think I know the answer, but are you going to Beer and Sweat, Bill?
Absolutely.
So Beer and Sweat is a keg only competition. It's at the Marriott by CVG. Am I getting that right, Chris?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So keg only competition. I think when I just registered the other day, I think they had 220 and change, 230 and change. So gonna be a lot of entries. It's a lot of fun. If you're not a competition guy, or lady, I still recommend doing it. It's the one competition I make sure I get to every year. It's a blast. We just recently had our first competition at the store. That was the reason why I wanted to sit us down and kind of discuss basically how it was judged. I know Bill entered into it. Obviously, he got first and third place in the competition. and Chris entered into it. I looked at your score sheets today, but not today. I sent those to you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Chris did not place, but he did score very well.
Wasn't too hateful.
What's that?
It wasn't too hateful. I'm not that mad about it. Not right now.
So I guess, Chris, you probably would be the best. Is there any questions before I get started to kind of go over how we judged it, how we scored it, or anything that possibly I'll miss when I discuss that?
Well, yeah, because I think when it comes to the judging criteria, I think a lot of folks, at least for myself, I don't. I guess I haven't got into the nuts and bolts, and I don't have nearly as much experience as Bill does. So it's interesting to see, because I was read through some of the notes from the score sheets, and really you do have to get into really like the details of it when it comes to like carbonation, when it comes to, I guess, aroma, flavor. I mean, some of the things that a lot of folks that just do this, they want to fill a keg, have something on the side to offer to friends. So I guess can you walk me through some of the specific things that you guys were looking for, like when you were judging these things? Because some things that, I just tend to kind of write off like, oh, it's a little cloudy. It's not that big of a deal. Stuff like that.
So overall, we did not do anything formal. We had 4 judges. One of them was a BJCP certified judge, which will be at Beer and Sweat. That's a BJCP certified competition. So we kind of followed their blueprint of how they judge it. Being that it was a in-store competition, we were really looking for really solid beers. We didn't really get people too much on not following style guidelines. More, we were worried about, like we just talked with Bill just a moment ago, fermentation temperatures, carbonation, just the blueprint of what makes a good solid beer.
Mm-hmm.
Most of our judging, it looked a little negative, but we were really just basically giving the reasons why the beer didn't win first place. So we didn't go too much on what we liked about the beer. Unfortunately, we just basically said, low carbonation, slightly hazy in appearance. Actually, Chris, I believe one of the things that we noted on yours, you entered in New England IPA, and yours wasn't hazy. Yeah. So but we kind of went through some of those things and pointed out the reason why your beer didn't score higher. We try not to ding people too much on, if it was an IPA and it was a little bit not bitter enough or too bitter. We didn't try to ding people too much on those scores, just because we were more looking for good, solid, clean fermentations. We worried a little bit less on recipe construction and more just the overall quality of the beer. I don't know if that answers your question, kind of. So when you saw the scores, like I said, you could have brewed a beer that we may not have followed the style, but if it was good, we did score it appropriately. So basically what we did was, I learned real quick. We had 27 entries, and of those 27 entries, I don't remember all the styles that we did, or all the styles that we got. So what we did was, I learned real quick, people were giving me growlers. I know, Bill, you sent some crowlers. Bert, a long time customer of the store, he submitted in a very unique growler, and I knew I couldn't pour the beers for us to judge. I learned by accepting the entries. It wasn't fair. Whether I wanted to or didn't want to be biased, I was going to know whose beer was in what glass to some capacity. So I asked Mary, my wife, to come in, and Chad, shout out to Chad, he is the head brewer over at Star City, and Dan and Kyle from Carillon Brewing, they came in. But Chad, being a BJCP certified judge, one of the things that he did was, he basically, a couple days before we came in and drank the beers, he gave them basically a product code. Just like Chris, like I said, I don't remember your beer. To me, you were P3.
Mm-hmm.
So he basically gave a code to the beer, and then we matched it up with the sheet that everybody filled out. So then Mary, my wife, what she did was, he basically said, Mary, can you bring us without killing our palates too much, we try to stay within certain categories. So instead of like jumping back and forth between a Scottish ale, a saison, an IPA, we try to just drink a certain style of beer all at once, which helped categorize everything. So she poured the beers for us. All we saw in the glasses were the style of the beer, and then on the bottom was written, basically the product code, which linked it back to who brewed what. So if you do pick up the score sheets from the store, it takes me a while to decipher. To go through those, because I have to figure out which beer, because like I said, I still haven't wrote names on any of those. So basically, Chad did that. We had 2 sets of judges. I did not drink every single beer. Chad probably drank the majority of the beers because he's a BJCP certified judge. So if any of us were stumped, we would refer back to him. But basically, there was 2 teams of judges. We split the beers in half, so one set of judges would drink one half of the beers, the other set of judges would drink the other half of the beers, and then what we did was we scored those based on a BJCP score sheet. Now, being that 3 of the 4 of us aren't BJCP judges, I learned one set of judges were consistently scoring higher than the other set. So it was good, but that doesn't mean that the beer that scores the highest wins. Do you get what I'm saying? The beer that one set of judges were consistently higher, and then the other set of judges were different. So it isn't right necessarily for the beers that scored, the highest gets first, second, third. So basically, one set of judges scored half the beers, the other set of judges scored the other half. From that, we both put our 3 best picks from both sets of judges on the table. So basically, the 3 highest scoring beers from me and one other judge, and then the 3 highest scoring beers from the other set of judges. We put those 6 beers on the table, and from that, all 4 of us did drink those beers.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, at that point, whatever the judges scored the beers went out the window. We then said who was the best beer, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, so forth and so on. That way, we didn't know whose beers they were. We kind of broke them into styles, but nonetheless, that was just to keep from shocking our palate. So from there, we were able to come up with 6 of the best beers that we drank, no matter what the style was. And at that point, we threw out the score sheets. So we then, all 4 of us drank the beers and came up with what we thought was the best beer.
Okay.
So from that, those 6 beers, we learned real quick. First and second place, honestly, we were very divided. Third and fourth place beers, we knew pretty quick. Those were 3rd and 4th place. We were very, very, once again, it was difficult for us to choose. And 5th and 6th, we just knew those were at the bottom of the pack. We kind of came to that conclusion very quickly. So from that, like I said, we had no clue who brewed the beer. It was completely anonymous. All the beer styles came together. So whether you brewed an IPA or a pale ale or a saison, a wit beer, everyone went in the same till, and we chose from that. And from that, like I said, Bill built a blood orange pale ale. I don't know if we told the viewers that yet. Ended up winning first place.
Mm-hmm.
A milk stout won second place, and a wit beer, Bill won 3rd place as well. A wit beer that he brewed won 3rd place, and then there was an Oktoberfest that won 4th place. So that's kind of an overview of basically the way we scored the beers and how we tried to keep it as fair and anonymous as possible for everybody. I guess at that point, do you guys have any questions?
No, go ahead, Bill.
No, I don't have any.
So, I mean, that's basically, to my understanding, the way BJCP in a nutshell does score? Because I remember one year, Chris, when I was like so butthurt when I was like, dude, I scored a 37.5 and I didn't even get first, second. I didn't even get.
Yeah, that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I think the first year we went down to Beer and Sweat.
And then the last year, first place had 32 points.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, it was like, this isn't even right. And I was always someone was just like, if your beer scores this points, it should win first, so forth and so on. But if you think about it, there are certain judges that just score on a higher scale. So that is the best way to do it. Clearly, obviously, the people who scored me the 37.5 were being generous to beers. That's why I didn't even get an honorable mention. Versus the year that first place got a 32. I didn't enter in that category that year, but 32 won. Obviously those judges were more strict on style guidelines. But to my best knowledge, when they have the best of show, every judge drinks all of those beers in the lineup. And that's, in my opinion, the fairest way to judge it. I mean, it's that way it can stay anonymous, and the winner with the best beer wins.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So that being said, the next competition we're going to be at is going to be Beer and Sweat in not this Saturday, next Saturday.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. Next weekend.
Yep. About 10 days.
How many beers did you enter, Chris?
2. Yeah, I've got what did I enter? One was a cream ale. That's I've gotten the kegerator right now, and then the other one is going to be a strawberry milkshake IPA.
Okay. And Bill, how many are you entering in?
I got 4. Doing a beer to guard, fest beer, the Hefeweizen, and our maple beer.
Okay. The beer to guard, is that in the Oktoberfest category?
No, it's actually sort of in the Saison category.
Really?
It's actually a French beer, from northern France. I think it's considered an ale, but it's a beer that you lager. Beer to guard means beer to keep, and that beer is meant to be brewed in the springtime and lagered until the late summer months when it's hot, and then it's drank then.
I just recently seen Columbus Brewing Company. If you haven't had a chance to drink their beers, they have fantastic beers. I could have swore they had a beer to guard. For some reason, I thought it was an Oktoberfest. I don't know why my brain thought
they're similar. They're malty. They both have their malt forward.
Okay.
Beer to guard is a malty beer, but finishes really dry.
Okay.
They're typically around 7.5%, 8%.
So with your brewing capacity and everything, all your equipment, do you lean towards more of the dry yeast, liquid yeast strains? Do you have a particular brand you're fond of?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a fan of liquid yeast. When White Labs came out, I started using White Labs, and I was really happy with that. And then here lately, I've been using Imperial, and really hooked on Imperial now. It's fantastic yeast. I think you get more bang for your buck.
Yeah, with Imperial, you get twice the cell count as your White Labs or Y yeast. It's only a couple dollars more, and I've been brewing with it quite a bit as well. And it seems like every time I pour the yeast in, the next morning I wake up, I'm damn near high crossing. I mean, stuff takes off like a rocket ship. I don't make. Do you make starters with yours, Bill?
Sometimes I do when I got the time. A lot of times I'll just buy, if I'm going to do a lager, I'll buy 3 packs of it or whatever. If it depends on what the gravity is, like on ales. Sometimes, most of the time, you can get away with pitching 1 pack on ales. Anything below 1060, I think you can get away with 1 pack.
Mm-hmm.
But
I know me and you, Chris, we discussed earlier your beer that you entered into the competition, and kind of things that we could tweak. One of the things I know I recommended was potentially switching up the yeast you use for your New England IPA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're saying what, 66?
Yeah, I believe it's 066 by White Labs. If you like White Labs, 1318 by Y Yeast, and then Juice. I don't know. I think it's like 838. Juice. Those strains, if you're brewing a New England IPA, will definitely leave that super, super hazy, fruity.
I
profile.
actually used Juice this year on a New England IPA and loved it.
Okay, never used it before.
I used Juice about a week ago, and it was one of the first beers in a long time I blew right out of my carboy and into my airlock, and got to wake up to the get the wet towel and clean up the bottom of my
explosion
chamber. Yeah. So that was definitely fun, but it is by far a great yeast strain to use. I really like Imperial yeast. I think that the people are amazing and the products are amazing. If you haven't had a chance to use those, I would recommend.
You have it at the store?
Oh yeah. I carry all of their strains. I actually have another shipment coming in Friday, and I have all of their strains that they have available. They're super fresh when they get to us because they've become more and more popular. I highly recommend, if you haven't tried them, give them a try. We even have a good chart that Imperial provided us that goes over all of the comparable yeast strains from other manufacturers. So if you like California Ale by White Labs, that's flagship. AO7 by Imperial. So if you have a yeast strain that you like I said, they're not paying me to say this. I just personally think that they make a great product, and it turns out really well with the beers.
Sold. Okay.
So that being said, Bill, do you have any tips you'd like to give home brewers for their homebrew competitions on things that they can work on to get their beers better?
Just focus on your process control. Doesn't matter what kind of equipment you have. You can have the most basic equipment. It's all about controlling your processes, taking notes, and to be able to repeat what you've done. But process control.
I totally agree. Chris, any tips that you're going to take and you're going to use for any beers you got coming up in Beer and Sweat?
Yeah, and I think it comes from the presentation that the folks down at MASH gave on Monday is really getting into the details, man. I can't stress it enough. We had a presentation on Monday just talking about your water profiles, something that I don't know if a ton of folks that really get into it. I mean, some folks might be fine going out and getting spring water, mineral water, or something that they think might be a step up from tap water. But that's not always the case. I mean, you might want to try and start looking into the water chemistry and building some of your own profiles, so you're really matching the style of what you're brewing, and also so it can help you with your efficiency. So it's just something that, while I paid attention to it, I understood it, and I understood it to be important. But I mean, really, when you start to think about it, and when you get into the science behind it, I mean, there really are like a couple of things that you can do in order to, I guess, make a better beer. And I think that's just something that a lot of folks don't really take that into context when it comes to buying all the rest of their stuff, right? Because you're buying your grains, your hops, your yeast, and all that. But then when it comes to buying the water, it's like, oh, I've got water at home. But you really need something a little bit different than the stuff that you can get out of the sink.
So for sure, I'm definitely a tap water brewer for the most part. It is definitely something I brewed a beer not too long ago and really recognized water chemistry. There are certain styles where it can play a big role. We did mention there is a homebrew if you're from the Dayton, Ohio area, Miamisburg area, Springboro area. There is a great homebrew club called MASH. They are from Middletown. They're a good homebrew club to get with and share notes and different ideas that you have. Like I said, we want to do another competition at the store here very soon. So we had so much fun with the first competition that we really want to get another competition going on. We will post when we get there. We will also post when Bill's Blood Orange Pale Ale is on tap at Star City. So maybe you can meet us there for a pint or two. We can discuss home brewing. You can meet us at the MASH meeting. That's the first Monday of every month. Am I getting that correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. And August 17th is the Beer and Sweat. That'll be the next competition that I believe all three of us will be at, along with a lot of other home brewers, keg only. Outside of that, I want to thank Bill for joining us today, Chris for taking time out to join us as well. Bill, do you have any social media, any email, anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, anybody has any questions or want to reach out to me for anything, you can find me at walterswilliam915@gmail.com.
Awesome. Chris, do you have any handles or anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Chris Allen FFWX. Mostly do fantasy football, but try and shout out HBYOB as much as I can because love going down to the store and love learning about beer. So, I mean, if that's something that you're into, definitely check out the website. And then also, come ask me questions on Twitter.
All right. Well, my name is Joey, and I'm with HBYOB. You can find us at www.hbyob.com. All my social media and email is in the description of the YouTube video. I thank you all very much for coming out and seeing us today. And outside of that, have a great day.